O Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So in the last class, we completed the study of the first chapter of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Today we will enter into the second chapter in the company of devotees. March 11, 1882, about 8 o'clock in the morning, Sri Ramakrishna went as planned to Balaram Bose's house in Calcutta. It was the day of the Dol Yatra. Ram Manomohan Rakhal, a devoted disciple of the Master, later known as Swami Brahmananda, Nitya Gopal, and other devotees were with him. M too came as bidden by the Master. The devotees and the Master sang and danced in a state of divine fervor. Several of them were in an ecstatic mood. Nitya Gopal's chest glowed with the upsurge of emotion, and Rakhal lay on the floor in ecstasy, completely unconscious of the world. The Master put his hand on Rakhal's chest and said, "Peace, be quiet." This was Rakhal's first experience of ecstasy. He lived with his father in Calcutta and now and then visited the Master. About this time, he had studied a short while in Vidyasagar's school at Shampukur. When the music was over, the devotees sat down for their meal. Balaram stood there humbly, like a servant. Nobody would have taken him for the master of the house. M was still a stranger to the devotees, having met only Narendra at Dakshineshwar. A few days later, M visited the master at Dakshineshwar. It was between 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The master and he were sitting on the steps of the Shiva temples. Looking at the temple of Radhakanta across the courtyard, the master went into an ecstatic mood. Since his nephew Hriday's dismissal from the temple, Sri Ramakrishna had been living without an attendant. On account of his frequent spiritual moods, he could hardly take care of himself. The lack of an attendant caused him great inconvenience. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Kali, the divine mother of the universe. He said, "Mother, everyone says my watch alone is right. The Christians, the Brahmos, the Hindus, the Muslims all say my religion alone is true. But mother, the fact is that nobody's watch is right. Who can truly understand thee? But if a man prays to thee with a warming heart, he can reach thee through thy grace by any path. Mother, show me sometime how the Christians pray to thee in their churches. But mother, what will people say if I go in? Suppose they make a fuss. Suppose they don't allow me to enter the Kali temple again. Well then, show me the Christian worship from the door of the church." So here we find that one of the pertinent teachings of the Master is being highlighted. As many ways, so many paths. All the ways are paths which can take us to the absolute reality. But at the same time, each of the path is having its own defects. None, that as he was mentioning, that nobody's watch is right. What actually Sri Ramakrishna means by saying that as long as we are within the domain of belief, within the domain of doctrines and dogmas, all our thought processes are just concepts. In this life, most of the time we confuse the concept with the truth. The truth is never the concept. The example which we give again and again, that suppose a man who have tasted the mango, he goes and describes the taste of mango to a group of people who have never tasted the mangoes. What the man says, just to describe the taste of mango, he says it is sweet and it has a nice flavor. Those who listen, they think that they have understood. Now they all will develop a concept of the taste of mango. What's the concept? How it develops? That we do have certain fund of experiences. And when someone speaks to us, what we do? We relate to those funds of experiences which we already have and try to decipher the meaning of the words. Entire language is actually what? It's actually an encoded experience. What I experience, I encode it in a form of language, and that can be decoded only by those who have similar experiences. If you don't have the similar experience, you can never decode the language. Language by itself means nothing. Language is only possible when we have the same type of experiences. I have experience, you have the same experience, and then only I can encode my experience through language and you can decode it as you have the same experience. If you don't have, it is almost impossible. So here also what happens when a person who have tasted the mango, he says that mango is sweet, it has a nice flavor. All the people do have experience of something sweet. They do have the experience of something which has nice flavor. Now they try to relate his words with their available fund of experience. And all the concept develops. One will say the mango is as sweet as molasses, and its flavor most probably is something like jasmine. If the molasses was flavored with the smell of jasmine, that's what the taste of mango is. So what he is doing, he has most probably smelled jasmine, he has tasted molasses, and the words which has been spoken by the one who has tasted mango, he is relating with his fund of experiences and a concept is developed. Someone says, no, it is as sweet as honey and it has a fragrance of rose. He's also doing the same thing. And we find hundreds of concepts are developing. So now we will understand why Sri Ramakrishna is saying nobody's watch is right. Because it is just a matter of belief. It's a matter of concept. It is just a matam. As we in the few days in some different class we were saying in the Gita class, that there is a difference between tattva and mata. Tattva is the truth. Mata is an opinion. So these are all opinions which are growing. None of them are correct. But we go on fighting, saying my way of thinking is right, yours is wrong. Who can, that's what the next Swami, Sri Ramakrishna is saying, what? Who can truly understand thee? But if a man prays to thee with a warming heart, with a warning heart, he can reach thee through thy grace by any path. So this is an interesting thing, that what I believe is not at all important. Once Swami Vivekananda came and was conversing with Ramakrishna, and on the process of conversation, Swami Vivekananda told that such and such faith is a blind faith. They believe in all sorts of nonsense. It's a blind faith. Ramakrishna immediately retorted back very nicely. He told, well, can you tell me which belief, which faith has eyes? Faith means blind. Can faith have eyes? Faith means something which I haven't realized, I believe. All faiths are blind. Can you say me which faith has eyes? That was his reply. The same thing, nobody's watch is right. But is there no importance of the faith? No. Whatever may be your faith, apparently it may have no sense. But if with the whole simplicity of your heart, you believe in it, how intensely you believe in it, on that depends your realization. The entire world of spiritual realization has a science. What's the science? That what I believe is not at all important. Some may say my belief system is very scientific. And you may say such and such belief system has no science behind it, is all rubbish. But we find that whatever may be the belief, in all the religious traditions, we do have illumined souls who have reached the spiritual realization. Their life shows that. Then how come some wrong belief can take us to the realization? What I believe is not at all important in spiritual life. The problem is our rational mind comes in between, and with that rational mind, we start thinking what is right, what is wrong, and it has its own limitation. It can never take me to the goal. What's the science behind spiritual realization? Whatever you may believe, that's not important. How intensely you believe, that's important. What happens if I believe any notion which may apparently appear to be totally irrational, but with the simplicity of heart, I believe in it? What happens? That the science, the first, with the repeated, the what I believe, that I practice, with the repeated practice, a deep groove is, samskara is formed in your mind. The more the deep is the samskara, the more intense is your practice. The more intense is your practice, the more it makes you forgetful of all other things in your life. Your mind gets more and more focused to that belief, whatever it may be. And as we told, that first is the neuroplasticity. In the present modern language, that with the neuroplasticity, I'm creating a path in the mind. Once the path is created, I develop a taste for it. I start liking it. It becomes a passion of my life. And that passion, what it does, it makes me focused. And as you develop focus, other things starts falling off. As we have told repeatedly, the mind has a limited power of processing information. When I am talking to you, conversing with you, someone calls, I can hear, because only a small part of my mind is required to carry on the conversation with you. The other mind is free. It can hear if someone is calling me. But when I'm intently watching a movie, or some match is going on, the football tournament is going on, I'm intently watching it. Someone calls, I don't hear. I'm intently reading the newspaper. Someone calls, I don't hear. What has happened? Most of the mind has been taken away by the thing on which I am focused. So though the sound is hearing my ears, he is entering my ears, the mind has no part of the mind is left to process that. So the sound is entering your ears, is reaching your mind, but it is not processed. You don't hear it. Simply that's what happened. So that speaks of what? That when I am engrossed, the more and more I'm engrossed, if I'm engrossed in some performing, in some musical instrument, if I can get really engrossed, it can take me to that state of flow where everything else falls off, not only the external things. Even I may forget my hunger, thirst. I may be playing for hours together. The surgeon who has to be focused when he is operating on a patient, we find that generally for us, if we have to stand for half an hour, our leg starts aching. And the surgeon standing in the OT, operation theater, operates on the patient for 8 hours, 9 hours, if the complicated operation is there, without taking any rest. How is it possible? He most probably just in the normal day-to-day life, if you ask him just to stand for half an hour, he starts feeling uneasy. But in the OT, he's standing for 8 hours. Why? He's extremely focused. He knows that the scalpel with which he is operating, if it is misjudged a little, it can be at the cost of the life of the patient. He has to be very focused. And that focus, a tremendous focus. Now, what happens? The mind gets dislodged, disconnected from all other things. He forgets his hunger, thirst, tiredness, pain, aches. They are there. The mind is not registering it. He has also entered into a state of flow. This same thing happens when you create a groove in your mind by repeated practice, and that is possible if you believe in it. With full simplicity, if you believe in it, you can then only have that engrossment, and that engrossment can take you to that flow, where everything else you have forgotten. You are absorbed in the practice. You know how the spiritual realization happens? At last, whatever may be your spiritual tradition, the only thing which is obliterating, blocking my realization is this limited sense of my ego. When the ego falls off, immediately you go to that a realization. All the spiritual tradition you will find, they speak of that. When the realization may be varied, but when they go to that realization, they forgot themselves. They were totally lost. So the falling of the ego takes us to the realization. So when the mind gets extremely absorbed, at last, a very small part of our mind is always engaged to keep our identity, this limited sense of I, intact. At last, that also is taken away. And suddenly you find that you are one with your object of meditation. The ego has fallen off. And that takes you to the realization of the spiritual dimension, which is experienceable, but which cannot be described. It is something neotic in the language of philosophy. It is neotic. It is an experience which you cannot explain, but you know that it is not imagination. It is something which the way I am visualizing a cup in my vicinity, that way I have came face to face with the truth. No one can create doubt in your mind. You get fully convinced. As in the Aratrikam song we sing, Gata Sanshaya Dhrira Nishchaya. All the doubts fall off. You have a tremendous conviction. No one, just the way, as long as I have read about the ocean in the textbook, I have not seen. Someone may come and give explanation that there is no ocean. It is all nonsense. And then, most probably you may, for the time being, believe that most probably it's all wrong. But once you have seen the ocean, what will happen? If anyone comes and explains, you will say, you are fool. Please stop all this nonsense. I have seen it. Seeing is believing. And that's we find that all the mystics of all the traditions, once through that absorption, go to that realization, and then they come back as a totally transformed man. There, no more Maya works on him. The word Maya means, in the last Gita class we are indicating, ya means yatha. That I think when I'm seeing a thing, I'm seeing the thing as it is, yatha, ya. Ma is in the sense of negating it. That whatever I see is not actually what it is. So for this man of realization, all the delusion falls off. They again come back to this life, but totally transformed. The way we are deluded with our day-to-day life, for him, it becomes just a mere projection, and he becomes fulfilled. So now you will find that though our faith may be something like that watch, it is not giving the correct time, it is something wrong, but it can take us to that realization. Faith is blind, but it can open my eyes. To give an example from Ramakrishna's gospel in some other place, he is giving a very nice example that a very simpleton person has no knowledge, very simple. He saw a person who initiates many, is a family guru, and they have something to practice. Now, this simple fellow, he seeing others being initiated to some spiritual life, he also felt, why not me? Why not I approach? When he went to that so-called the guru, who is to initiate all, when he went, the guru knew that he is having no knowledge. He's an ignorant fellow. He's a simple fellow. He has no idea of spirituality. So just to make a fun out of him, he initiated him with some nonsense word, which has no meaning. But this man had tremendous faith. Repeating that nonsense word, he went to the realization. This is what Sri Ramakrishna in some other places is relating. So this says that what I believe is not important, that intensity of purpose that creates that neuroplasticity, whether you create a groove, that sanskara makes you fall in love with it, you become passionate with it, and that takes you a flow. That flow ultimately takes you to that realization. So that's the thing. Now you will relate to this word. That mother, everyone says, my watch alone is right. Still, it is a concept. The Christians, the Brahmos, the Hindus, the Muslims all say, my religion alone is true. But mother, the fact is that nobody's watch is right. Then is there no way out? The next we will find. Who can truly understand thee then? But if a man prays to thee with a warming heart, he can reach thee through thy grace by any path. Mother, show me sometime how the Christians pray to thee in their churches. But mother, what will people say if I go in? Suppose they make a fuss. Suppose they don't allow me to enter the Kali temple again. Well then, show me the Christian worship from the door of the church. Here also some lesson we can learn from this line. Swami Vivekananda used to say, even Ramakrishna have told a very interesting thing. Avatar gorte ashen, bhangte ashen. Avatara comes to build up, not to destroy. When they come to a particular type of society, which the society has its own set of beliefs, they never come to create a turmoil by just saying these are all wrong. You will find they adopt to the social norms and taking that to be something which cannot be broken, they show the way out. Why it is important? Because in our life, we will find most of the time we see evil, and in our attempt to correct the evil, we actually create more evil. Some problem is there. I think I should solve it. And I reach out to solve it by going against it, and I find the problem has increased. Just to give a common example, here now something happened in Bangladesh recently. It's very, very, I would say, very, very saddening situation. We all of us know the Hindus have been there, tortured, massacred. The news we are getting throughout the world. And if you go to the social media, you find there is a lot of irresponsible talking. That those who have done this, they are barbarous, they are this, they are that. We forget one thing. Those who are suffering in Bangladesh, they are the minorities. And they are vulnerable. By social media, by saying something nonsense to the one who are responsible for that cruel act, I am actually enraging them, for which I have no measure. And I am making those people more vulnerable. So now you will understand, just by going to stop the evil, sometimes we can increase the evil. You have to be that we do recognize that some wrong act is happening. But can I just simply irresponsibly speak all sorts of nonsense? Is it going to help? That's the thing. You will find that many are saying the government is quiet. The Indian government is sitting there quiet. People are saying whatever they want. Because the government knows the responsibility, there is a tremendous responsibility on them. They speak a single word that can enflare the entire thing in a much more cruel way. So they have to take this decision very, very diligently. It's not that the measures shouldn't be taken, has to be taken, but they have to be very diligent about it. So just to react to a situation can never be the solution in most of the time. But what can be the solution? To find out a way out of it. I will just give an example that Hinduism for the long time was doing that. It was a wonderful way of trying to accept the situation, but my spiritual journey shouldn't stop. I should find a way out of it. Now, recent stories says that there was the breaking of the idols. Do you know in Hinduism from when this culture, this practice came to worship the idol and then to immerse it? We Hindus don't know. When we just go and shout at others, but if someone asks that why do you immerse your image, there is a philosophical reason behind it, but more interesting, before the philosophy, there is a historical reason. What's the historical reason? If you go to India, even now you will find in South India, image worship, that means clay image worship with the practice of immersing them is not there. They have big temples, the deity is there always. There's no question of immersion. You come to the east, the north, the Ganesh Puja, there is immersion. Here in the east, if you go to see the Durga Puja, Kali Puja, there is immersion. But in the south, it is not there. South, it is always that permanent temples are there with the deity. So why this difference? How it happened? You will find in India had a lot of foreign invasions. With the foreign invasions, especially with the Islamic invasions, we find it never went to the south. The south, because of its geographical barrier or whatever may be the reason, it somehow remained unaffected from all invasions. But India was affected by the invasions mainly in the northern India. And the general practice we all know, breaking of the idol, breaking of the temple. And now it became a very, very challenging situation that I want to continue with my faith. I want to continue with my faith, but how? They're all breaking the temple. Now this idea of image worship, not only image worship, even in Kali Puja, what happens? The worship is done in the night, and in the morning, the image is immersed. Why it all happened? That yes, there is a fear that my image will be broken. So I worship it and immediately immerse it. But how can I just reason? How can I just have an idea that the image which I am thinking something livable, how can I immerse it? So wonderful philosophy is adhered to it. What's the idea? That the God resides in each and every being. Even in me, the God resides. But it is an abstract idea to worship the one who is residing in me. It becomes so difficult. So what? Yes, I create an image. If you know the image worship, in all the image worship, first the image is lifeless. There is a concept of prana pratishtha, where I imagine the Lord who is seated in my heart comes out and resides in the image. Now the image has become lively. Prana pratishtha has been done. And I ask for forgiveness. Oh Lord, as I cannot worship you in the abstract form, I need something palpable in front of me. So I have enshrined you. You who reside in my heart, you come and enliven this image. And after the worship, I say, oh Lord, we reside in my heart. Now the image is just like a dead body. You will find as long as the worship is going on, apart from the puja, this is the one who is doing the puja. No one is allowed to touch the image. What to speak of touching the image? Not to go even near the image. Once that ritual is done, where that the Visarjan has been done by the pujari, where the prana has been again taken back by the pujari. Now all are allowed to come and touch. You will find in the Durga Puja, before immersion, everyone is allowed to touch the deity. Why? Now it's just like a dead body. Everyone can go, put vermilion, put sweets, whatever they want, they do. And now after that, it is immersed. So idea is, so why it has this, they also developed a philosophy behind it. So why I am speaking of this? When there is, the social condition is not favorable, the Hinduism still exists because of its strength of adaptability. It went on adapting, it went on adapting. Now the situation, of course, has come where even that for 3 days, you are not allowed to worship the image. It may be massacred. It's really a very, very endangered situation where that I have no right to practice my religion. Of course, it has to be dealt with, but not with the irresponsible way, the way we are reacting. We forget when we react that way, we are already converted to some other religion, because that's not the tradition of Hinduism. To impose, to just oppose others through violence, through all sorts of abuse. The moment I do that, if the vengeance comes in me, I've already been converted. So there we have to be very, very responsible. So here we find, so Ramakrishna also is not challenging this belief that the Dakshineshwar temple, the authorities have the belief that being a Hindu, you cannot go to the church. He is not opposing it. Even in Bible, the same thing you will find, that Jesus says that I came to build, not to destroy. I came to not to destroy is the exact word, but I came to build, most probably some other word is there, but it's the exact idea. They come to build, not to destroy. They accept the social conditions. And based on that, they try to find out a way where religion can be still practiced. Well, if I cannot enter the church, what's the harm in standing in the door of the church and try to relate to the worship? So just see, here he is adapting to the situation, not reacting to it, and making this that way. If he is not allowed to enter the temple, it in no way is going to help him or anyone else. So he doesn't waste his energy just by creating a turmoil. He accepts the social norms, and within that, still he finds out a way by which he can relate to all. So, Mother, show me sometime how the Christians pray to thee in their churches. But Mother, what will people say if I go in? Suppose they make a fuss. Suppose they don't allow me to enter the Kali temple again. Well then, show me the Christian worship from the door of the church. So that eagerness makes him to adapt. This is the thing which we should learn from the lives. That each, as we were mentioning, that each and every line of the gospel do have some, it is not a simple sentence. Whatever words is coming out from his mouth do have some significance which we can adopt, which we have to adopt in our life. So always, even another example I will give, many will be asking us that question. If you read Viveka Chudamani, there Shankaracharya is mentioning that the Durlabham Trayam Evaitat. What are the 3 Durlabha things, 3 rare things? That to get the human birth, and then to become something, what you say, the Brahmin, and to have the male body, to be born as a male. And many will be criticizing Shankaracharya by saying that he is also just conforming to the norms of that society where the women were discriminated. But again, the same thing. It's what he's saying is not discrimination. The social, that fact is such that their women were considered, they were considered that they have no right to read the scriptures. So he's not going against, but at the same time, he is prescribing, he's showing that accepting the fact that this is the thing. So if you're born in a male body, of course, in this type of society, you get the privilege. He's not saying that women are something who is not capable. What he's saying, that in this present society, this norm is such in which if you're born as a male, you have a more privilege to practice the spiritual life. So if you just relate to those words in the correct perspective, you will find they are actually accepting that they don't come to revolutionize the world. Because as we told, you will find that after all revolution, the repercussion is something tremendous. Just see with the idea of communism, with such a hoary idea. Even 50, 60 years back, I saw those people having highly idealistic, and those people themselves are totally at loss when they find when they see the history of communism in the world, how it has defeated its own purpose. It came for the equality of all, and at last, whatever may be the reason, it has ended up with the most horrible dictators. All the communist states you will find has ended up with horrible dictators. Why I'm saying, I'm not criticizing anything. The only thing just we want to indicate is that sometimes just by trying to get a solution of the problem, we create more problem. So the avatara's way of working is different. They know very well that the society, as such, the society can never be changed. It will have its own problem. But if I want to be spiritual, I need not fight with the system. Take the system and try to adapt in such a way for that without creating a turbulence. It will disturb your spiritual life. You can go out of it. After all, there is no solution here in this world. Again, because Sri Ramakrishna again and again told, this world is a dog's curly tail. We go on fighting it to straighten it, but know it for certain, it can never be straightened. A spiritual person, the one who wants to lead a spiritual life, first should know this fact, that the life which I'm leading has nothing to do with this curly tail. I take it to be a fact and try to evolve spiritually, which has nothing to do with this worldly existence. And so that they don't want to create any fuss. They adopt to the situation and try to build with whatever the norms are there. And this do have a lesson for us in our life. Another day, the master, now let us just continue with the next portion. Another day, the master was seated on the small couch in his room with his usual beaming countenance. M arrived with Kali Krishna, who did not know where his friend Aim was taking him. He had only been told, if you want to see a grog shop, then come with me. You will see a huge jar of wine there. M related this to Sri Ramakrishna, who laughed about it. The master said, the bliss of worship and communion with God is the true wine, the wine of ecstatic love. The goal of human life is to love God. Bhakti is the one essential thing. To know God through jnana and reasoning is extremely difficult. So the bliss of worship and communion with the God is the true wine. The wine of ecstatic love. So why it is wine? In one sense, it is wine. It can make you forgetful of the world. But in another sense, it is not the wine. Why? In wine, it makes you forgetful of the world and it makes you unconscious. You are not aware of anything. But this divine love is something where you are extremely aware. Your consciousness is extremely alert. But that is in communion with the divine. Externally, you may look like a inert person, as if totally drunk. But inwardly, you are enjoying that ecstatic divine bliss. You are extremely alert. 1,000 times more alert than any other being. Their mind is extremely distracted. They can never think of that type of alertness. He is extremely focused, extremely alert. But externally, he looks like as if totally drunk. So this is the true wine, the wine of ecstatic love. The bliss of worship and communion with God is a true wine, the wine of ecstatic love. The goal of human life is to love God. Bhakti is the one essential thing. To know God through jnana and reasoning is extremely difficult. So here again, The goal of human life is to love God. This is again a very important sentence. Swami Vivekananda in his lecture have told many times that the entire civilization as a human being, what we are trying with all our gadgets, what we are trying to intensify the sense pleasures. That's all our science or technology is meant for, to intensify our sensual pleasures. But can that be the goal of life? God has not equipped us for that. However, we may try. Can you eat with the same gusto as a dog? The way the dog relishes his food. We can never. Our senses are not equipped for tasting the food that way. The senses of the animals are keen. Few days back, I saw an article someone has shared with me that the birds can even feel the magnetic field, the shifting of the magnetic field, and accordingly they can, these migrating birds, they can migrate. There are so many animals before the earthquake can feel that the earthquake is coming. Just see, the senses are so keen. The dogs are used for your all the this to what you say to catch the criminals, because of the wonderful sense of smell. We can, with all our technology or gadgets, we can never think of intensifying our sensual perceptions and sensual pleasures just the way the animals enjoy. God has equipped them with the senses. With all our science or technology, we can never think of, but we waste our energy in that. But what the animals cannot do, what's our uniqueness? To love God, to think of God, the idea of divinity. The God has not given that capacity to any animal. As a human being, we can relate to the spiritual dimension of existence. That is the uniqueness of the human life. As in Bengali, human is called Manush. And Sri Ramakrishna, who was not educated in so-called our so-called academic education, he had the freedom to break the words in his own way. It has no grammatical meaning. He had the freedom because he was not gone through that academic education. So he broke the word Manush in his own unique way. He told Manush means Man plus Hush is Manush. Man plus Hush in Bengali, in Hindi or other languages is Hosh. So Man plus Hosh, Manush. What it means? Very interesting. What he's saying is something very interesting. That as a human being, Mana means values. We have certain values. We have certain measurements, Mana, measurement, value, which no other creature has. But even though we have it, we have no awareness of it. No hosh, no awareness of it. Unless you have the awareness of all those unique capacities which you have, though you look like a human being, you are not human being. Just see how simple words, but how profound it is. Man plus hush is Manush. The special mana, all those values, all those intrinsic characteristics as a human, those unique characters which I have, am I aware of that? If you're not aware, you are not a Manush, you are not a human. So that's what that uniqueness he's showing here. The goal of human life is to love God. The tremendous ecstatic joy which can come out of communion with the divine, no creature can think of it. That's our uniqueness. And forget that, bhakti is the one essential thing. It's as simple as that. To know God through jnana and reasoning is extremely difficult. I can relate to my spiritual dimension through pure knowledge. It's possible, but it is extremely difficult. We will find even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 2 slokas which indicate that why jnana is difficult and bhakti is commendable. He's not saying that jnana is something which you shouldn't practice. You can practice, but it is difficult. Why? We will relate to that Bhagavatam sloka, that there are 3 types of people for which these 3 types of practices are prescribed. Nirvinnana, who are extremely detached, who has already developed a tremendous detachment, For them, Jnana Yoga is okay. You resort to the path of Jnana. You just realize that the world is having no substance. It can lead me nowhere. I renounce it. You have tremendous power of that renunciation. And along with that, the willpower is also there. If it is a fuss, I am not going to deal with it anymore. Here it ends. Nirvinnanam Jnana Yoga. But we all know it's not that easy. Just once I realized, just the way a drug addict knows very well that addiction is causing him or her extreme harm, can he leave it? No, because the addiction is so strong. For us also the similar condition. Though we may understand that Brahma Satya Jagad Mithya, God is the only reality, world is after all just a flow, still we find attachment. So for all that, Jnana Yoga cannot be nirvinnana, only for those who are extremely detached. Somehow, by the grace of the divine or by the practice in the previous life, he has already developed the tremendous detachment. For them, Jnana Yoga is prescribed. It's the Bhagavatam sloka. Nirvinnanam Jnana Yoga, Nyasinam Iha Karmasu. And those who are extremely attached, they have to go through that karma yoga. Lot of actions, thinking that yes, I am offering it to the divine. Through that, gradually they have to develop detachment. Tesham anirvinna chittanam karma yogastu kamya. So that's the thing. For those who have been totally disgusted with works and have renounced them, that is the sannyasis, the Jnana Yoga is suitable. And for those whose minds are not disgusted, who are extremely attached, for them, karma yoga. Then for whom this bhakti yoga? Now you will find that why it is easy. We can all relate to it. The next sloka in Bhagavatam, that yadrichaya mat kathadav jata sraddhastu yah puman. By whose grace somehow we have developed a taste for the scriptures, for the spiritual lives, for the illumined lives, for the scriptures. Yad Ichraya. Why Yad Ichraya? Most probably I had no plans to go to some religious discussion. By chance, I was there. It happens in our life. I was by chance in some place where religious discussions was going on. I never had any idea of that type of ideas. Just hearing, I find, wow, it's wonderful. It happens to most of us. It's such a nice, it has as if opened up a new portal in my life. And actually, it was not my plan. It happened somehow. So that's why that Yad Ichraya, it is as if a grace. Yad Ichraya mat kathadav jata sraddhastu yah puman. And the little Shraddha develops. Wow, it's a nice idea. Why not I orient my life according to this idea? And then we find the difficulty that though we have developed a little detachment, but still we cannot simply say that no to that word. That as it is wrong, I leave it there itself. I cannot do that. So na nirvinno, that I am not extremely detached, na atisakto, na atisakto. Neither I am too attached, that I find that these words do have meaning. I cannot simply brush it off. That at the same time I find I cannot simply follow those words and leave everything. Neither am I too attached to the world so that I can just simply ignore these words. So this pull is there. For them, bhakti yoga asya siddhida. So these are the two slokas from the Bhagavatam. And where we will find that we fit in, where we fit in. This is our situation. And here, bhakti becomes the easier path compared to jnana. Bhakti is not easy. It is easier to jnana. Many may say, oh, bhakti is easy. Bhakti is not that easy. Because throughout the world, in the name of bhakti, what we find, Swami Vivekananda told, and you will find literally it's true in the present world, that when I say I am devoted, you just judge your own heart. How much devotion is there? It's almost nil. But how I show my devotion? I show my devotion by sowing my hatred, intense hatred, to all those who doesn't believe the way I believe. So it is actually the expression of tremendous hatred. Throughout the world, that's what's going on. That to prove that I am of such and such faith, I go on denouncing others, abusing others, physically, mentally, emotionally. And that's how I am a great devotee. So that's why I'm saying the devotion is not easy. It's not that easy. That Swamiji told, if we would have developed a little love in this our heart, that we all speak of love, if we would have really developed a little love in our heart, this world would have been changed. That love is not that easy. Yes, but compared to that jnana, it is easier. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is prescribing. That what he's in his words, that as we find reflected in the Bhagavatam, that to know God through jnana and reasoning is extremely difficult. So it's better to resort to love, to bhakti. And that bhakti can be developed. How it can be developed? As in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that has been mentioned, the same thing Ramakrishna will be mentioning. Let's just read the words and then we will try to relate. For one who by sheer fortune, that's what we have just now read, that sloka. Then the master sang, who is there that can understand what Mother Kali is? Even the 6 darshanas are powerless to reveal her. Actually, this song relates to the words which he has spoken, that all the faith, they are like the watch. Everyone thinks his watch is correct, but no one's watch is correct. But at the same time, by faith in that, it can take you to the realization. The 6 darshanas are the concepts. Darshana means my angle of vision. It speaks of the limitation. Darshana, the word darshana is very interesting. The darshana, if you say philosophy, it's a very loose translation. It's not the exact translation. Darshana means to see. It speaks of perspective. And the perspective itself speaks of limitation. How it speaks of limitation? Suppose to take any building. If I take the photo from the east and a photo from the west, from the north, from the south, all the photos will be different. Is it not? Is it going to be the same? No. So as per my perspective, the angle of vision, this is the truth. But that doesn't speak of the entire truth. So that's why all the darshanas are powerless to reveal her. It just expresses as a part of a part of the reality. It cannot express the reality. That's the darshana itself speaks. The word darshana itself speaks that it is my perspective. That's the see, if you can translate the words literally, then immediately it will make you humble. Yes, I am a Vedantin. I am an Advaitin. Yes, my perspective. That way I cannot say the other's perspective is wrong. From other's perspective, he is, yes. From that perspective, he is also correct. So that's why darshana is not philosophy. Philosophy is the search for truth. Here by the word darshana, directly you are accepting the fact. It is not the truth. As I am yet not capable to realize the truth as a whole, it's a particular perspective from which I am seeing the truth. And they are powerless to reveal her. It's very natural. So that's why Vedas were the scriptures which itself declared that the ultimate reality is beyond the Vedas. So these words are so, that's why very, very strong, pertinent. He who is there that can understand what Kali is, that's what she's singing. Even the 6 darshanas are powerless to reveal her. The master said again, the one goal of life is to cultivate love for God. The love that the milkmaids, the milkmen, and the cowherd boys of Vrindavan felt for Krishna. When Krishna went away to Mathura, the cowherds roamed about weeping bitterly because of their separation from him. So again, now you will find that the love which speaks of viraha, that's the highest form of love. In the devotional scriptures, the viraha has been given extreme importance, that my separation from the Lord creates a tremendous anguish. You may say, why it is highest? Just the way I cannot just even live for one, even one, more than 3-4 minutes without oxygen. If my oxygen is obstructed, if I am not allowed to breathe, 3-4 minutes I will die. And when I am not allowed to breathe, the way I feel for this, to have a puff of breath, the way you are feeling, you are gasping for breath, that is the thing which speaks of viraha. Is your condition like that? That little separation from the Lord makes you feel terribly anguish. The terrible anguish is there in your heart. So that's the highest form of love. Otherwise, it's just a mere fancy. Just the way, okay, that as Swami Vivekananda used to say, for most of us, religion is just a hobby, a fancy. And to explain that, he used to say that suppose I have the habit of collecting antiques. So many antiques I have in my house. And then I find that the feng shui should also be there. The Italian, the marble statues are there. So many things are there. I have this wonderful carpets. One thing is missing, the feng shui or the laughing Buddha. I buy. So among many things, it is also there, one thing. So I go to some place and they ask, oh, this I am initiated by such and such Baba. Are you initiated? I feel a bit embarrassed. I am not initiated. Oh, let me take. And then I take an initiation and I can also say, yes, I am initiated. So that also has become like a fancy, a hobby. So that way, we cannot really develop that love. Have the love for God has created such an anguish in your heart that if I forget, if I somehow the day-to-day my engagement doesn't allow me to think of him as I'm habituated in morning, evening, or throughout the day, you will find that those who are devotees, those who have resorted to the spiritual practice, if some events come which doesn't allow them, they feel as if they're out of waters. So that's the viraha. And that's the idea which has been highly praised in the scriptures. And to express that devotion, which speaks of that separation, tuned to that, Sri Ramakrishna, after saying that the cowherd voice is to weep bitterly from the separation, that is on the same theme, he immediately starts singing a song. Saying this, the master sang with his eyes turned upward. Just now, I saw a youthful cowherd with a young calf in his arms. There he stood by one hand holding the branch of a young tree. Where are you, brother Kanai? Means a cowherd boy, as Krishna has went to Mathura. So for that separation, he's somehow holding himself holding the branch of a tree and crying bitterly, where are you, brother Kanai? He cried. But Kanai scarcely could he utter. His pangs of separation is so much that just by saying ka, he can utter no more. Ka was as such as he could say. He cried, where are you, brother? And his eyes were filled with tears. So this is the song. Now, these words for us now means no meaning. But when Sri Ramakrishna is singing, just try to imagine, and all are hearing, it creates a wonderful effect there. And it's such a palpable sensation is there that's being related by the master. That when Aim heard these songs of the masters laden with love, his eyes were moist with tears. Just can imagine that what a tremendous spiritual environment, vibration it is to create. Ramakrishna singing with full devotion, oblivious of the surrounding, and it gets transmuted, that emotions gets transmuted to others. And that's a wonderful environment, just think. And that should create a craving in us, that when we also can get such type of environment where our devotion will blossom. So here we find that separation, even in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, we found that they had told that bhakti manifests in 11 ways. And there also we found that the highest is this viraha, parama viraha shakti. That is the last thing. First they told, first it comes with guna mahatmya shakti. First, when I read the scriptures for the first time, read the life of Krishna, all his deeds, that may overwhelm you. That is the guna mahatmya. Rupa shakti. Rupa is very important. In our tradition, in Hindu tradition, the form is a very important thing. Well, most of us don't know why. When we are encountered with questions, sometimes we find a bit embarrassed that God is without form. Why form? Again, we are saying all the spiritual beliefs are a way. They doesn't speak of the absolute. They are the pointers. You know how Rupa helps? Rupa helps a wonderful way. Nama Rupa. What we do, we imagine, we just visualize a form and go on repeating the name. That's the main practice, spiritual practice in the Hindu tradition. Any culture, whether it is a Vaishnava, Shakta, at last, whatever is the chosen ideal, the Ishta, they imagine, visualize that form and go on repeating the name. You know what's the science behind it? This is the practice which can really help you in tremendous concentration. You know why? You just analyze the way we think, your thought. Each and every thought has two aspects. Nama, Rupa. When suddenly I'm sitting here, and the mother is sitting in his house, his child is in this, her child is in school, the thought of the child comes in her mind. In what form the thought, what will the aspects of this thought? Two things. The moment she thinks of her child, the form of the child will be visualized by her. It will come to her mind, and she will be repeating, and the name of her child also will be in her mind. So each and every thought has these two aspects, Nama, Rupa. Whenever I'm thinking, you'll find something you are visualizing, and you need a language to think. That language has become a part of your thought. So the language and visualization. Now, however abstract may be your spiritual ideals, God is without form, it appears to be very nice. Without visualization, it makes no meaning. You will find sometimes, however you try, some form of visualization will be there. We are all idolatrous, some form. You may be thinking, when you say God is limitless, you will be thinking of ocean, sky. They are also form. Is the God the sky? Is God the ocean? No. Some form you will resort to. And that is not bad. It is required. Why? You will find it happens. Sometimes mechanically you are taking the name without visualizing. And it happens, day-to-day life. I will find that the name is being repeated, but the visualization, all sorts of visualizations are happening. You're visualizing so many things, but mechanically you're taking the name. And that's how you find the mind, as the thought has two aspects. You have not taken care of both the aspects. It becomes so difficult to focus. So Rupa Shakti is something very important. It makes the focus very intense. The visualization aspect is also taken care of by focusing on that Rupa. Your mind is not allowed to waver with all those visualizations. And the Nama takes care of the language aspect of your thought. Both the aspect is taken. Now the focus becomes intense. So this is a way. It is not speaking of the absolute goal. So we ourselves don't know the reason, the philosophy behind our practices. So if you know it, no one can take you away from your practice. No one can. There is no need of feeling embarrassed. So these are the things which has been indicated: Guna Shakti, Rupa Shakti, Puja Shakti, Smarana Shakti. Like that, the 10 has been indicated. And at last, Parama Viraha Ashakti. So all those practices, when you develop the tremendous devotion, where even for a minute, if I am without the thought of God, I feel the tremendous anguish in my heart. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that when the thought of God has become like your toothache, when you're having a toothache, you may be doing all your activities. You're busy with all your activities, but can you forget that ache? It is always engaging a part of your mind. You can never forget it. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say that it should become like your toothache. And that speaks of that Viraha Shakti. Little forgetfulness immediately makes you feel horrible, terrible. And when you have developed that, then you should be sure of the fact that you have really developed devotion. So through that song, he's indicating that try to develop so much devotion that without the thought of the God, you feel as if you are out of water. It's like a fish, you're out of water. So with this, we stop our discussion today. We will continue with the study of the gospel again in the next class. So thank you all. Namaskar.